Hello again, new viewers and existing subscribers. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have a story that perfectly captures the unpredictable nature of life in Bangkok, as told by our subscriber, Andre from America. Andre is no stranger to the vibrant and sometimes chaotic energy of Thailand's capital, and he's learned to expect the unexpected. Take it away, Andre. I have spent enough time in Bangkok to know that if you spend enough time in Bangkok, someone or something at some point is going to make you wonder why it is you keep on going back there. Never believe that you've seen it all. I've learned to expect the unexpected when I'm there. I just don't expect it to reach me while I'm sitting 6,000 miles away at home in London. Maybe it's my own fault. I first met Ladda about 5 years ago. She was working at one of those little outside bars on Patpong that is a part of its better-known go-go bar. I had taken to walking down there in the afternoons for a couple of beers and to watch the world go by. I'd chat and joke with the girls on the afternoon shift and buy a couple of beers for them. Now and then, one of them would take a face towel from the fridge and cool me down. Music, at that time of day, played softly in the background as a fan whirred overhead. It wasn't long before the girls started looking out for me on those bright, hot, sunny afternoons. I then discovered that they had given me a nickname. As soon as I was spotted walking in from Salem Road, there would be a shout of welcome as they all seemingly jumped into action. A beer and paella, cold towel, would be ready before I'd even sat down. The clattering sounds of metal, poles and shouts of the night market vendors, setting up their stalls for another evening, usually signaled the time for me to be moving on, back for a shower, and then head across town. But I enjoyed those easy afternoons, and each time it became a little harder to leave. Okay, one more, I'd say, as though I'd given it a lot of thought. They'd all cheer with a gesture towards their empty glasses and bottles on the bar. I know how the game is played. It was around this time that Ladda would show up for the evening shift. For a while, I didn't pay too much attention to her, just hello when she arrived and goodbye when I left. As the days went on, she started to show up a little earlier, so I'd buy her a drink along with the other girls, who, unsurprisingly, were more than happy to stay on for another, rather than finish their shift and go home. Once they had drifted away, it would be me and Ladda, with a couple of girls from the evening shift. Soon, those bright, hot, sunny afternoons began to melt into dusk before dusk itself, then blended into darkness without me noticing. I'd suddenly realized that the volume all around had increased and that the market was in full flow. The neon glow of bar girls, beer and loud music would be upon me. For a while I was still able to tear myself away mid-evening with most of my brain cells still intact and money in my wallet. I had no ties with any of the girls other than having a few drinks and joking around at the bar with them. I guess I should have left it at that. But on my next visit, Ladda seemed capable of giving a massage that felt as though she knew what she was doing. I asked if she would like to come by my hotel one afternoon if I was to give her a call. I had known a girl a few years before who I used to see for a massage. She had gone back to Ubon, and I'd never found anyone to replace her despite my best efforts. Ladda appeared to be strong enough to ease my aches and pains. And so, ultimately, one more doomed Farang and bar girl relationship began. Strange that it ever started at all, really. although, as is often the case, it slowly crept up on me. Just a few drinks at the bar. Then a call to come over to Soy 8 one afternoon, where I was staying for that massage. Then to suggesting that she didn't go to work afterwards and that I'd pay the bar fine so we could go out for the evening. Then staying over for a night. Then staying over for a couple of nights so we could go somewhere during the day. For a girl who had danced on stage in the bar for a number of years and then worked at the outside bar even longer, her English was still at basic bar girl level. What's your name? Where you come from? What you dink? Ladda was in her mid-30s, a strong-looking girl from Phuket with long black hair and minimal makeup. She had one tiny tattoo that I could live with. Apart from being seen with me, it was perhaps the only real visual as to her occupation. Dressed mostly, whether she was working or not, in normal-looking shorts and loose-fitting tops. She didn't strike me as a girl who'd been taken out that much. For a while it seemed to come as a surprise to her that I would want to take her out at all. The first time I gave her some money before having to get back to London, she couldn't believe it. She looked mystified at the crisp 1,000 baht notes I pushed into her hand. Looking at me almost in disbelief before looking back at the fistful of cash, she asked, "Kun hai chan mai? Are you giving it to me? Kun hai chan mai? Are you giving it to me?" "Chai hi kun, yes, I'm giving it to you," I said, surprised that she was surprised and wishing I hadn't given her quite so much. Ladda lived in a small, windowless box in some apartment block around Pratunam. She would take a bus to work each day, through the late afternoon rush. Then home again, around 3 or 4 in the morning, and sleep most of the day 7 days a week. Maybe once or twice a year, she would go back home to Phuket for a few days if she had the money. Why would she worry about what was happening elsewhere? Any ambitions she might once have had for her life had evaporated long ago. I once asked her what she would like to do if she won the lottery, expecting her to say that she would stop work and live in luxury or something similar. All she could think of was to go back home for a couple of weeks and give most of the money to her mother before going back to the bar. Back in the late 80s, on my first couple of trips to Bangkok, I often felt that I was on a mission to rescue girls from bars. I was a sucker for the ones who maybe weren't the most beautiful looking, the ones who looked as though they were never taken out. I know now that they were the ones who gravitated towards me, because they could see that I wasn't yet the cynical old git I was later to become once I realized how it all worked. No money, no honey wasn't just a meaningless phrase on a t-shirt bought from a Kao Au San or Tsi. Statum postal Iowide, I discovered. Maybe somewhere deep down that feeling was still there with Ladda. I enjoyed taking her out to places around Bangkok where she'd never been before, which, other than Patpong, was just about everywhere. Conversation might not have been up to much with my limited Thai and her even more limited English, but it was always fun. Though maybe it involved more alcohol than was good for us at times. Most girls I've traveled with in Thailand usually make getting around a little easier. Any information you need or negotiations to be done is much less hassle when you can leave it with a native to deal with. With Ladda, this was rarely the case. I usually ended up having to do it myself, but I loved the fact that mostly, whatever bars or restaurants we were in, she had a way of becoming friends with anyone who worked there. In the bars especially, she would be exchanging phone numbers in no time at all with any girls that took care of us, as if they'd known each other for years. This often had its advantages in that we were always welcomed back, like old friends, and looked after by more attentive staff. Now and again, there would be drinks on the house or an invitation to meet for lunch with people the following day. The disadvantage, of course, was that I was buying more drinks for everyone and leaving tips all around. Not that I minded most of the time. Ladda empathized with the girls, and I was happy to play the part of a 2-week millionaire. I know how the game is played, and you either play it or you don't. It's more fun to play, though once in a while it would start to spiral out of control a little. Country Road Bar on Soy Cowboy was already packed by the time we got there. The band on stage had people up, dancing and clapping along to the music. Tables overflowed with drinks and a happy-looking crowd. Knowing us from previous visits, because of Ladda, a table somehow materialized amidst the chaos. A couple of the girls were waving us over as they cleaned and guarded the table, while another 2 or 3 girls shepherded us towards it through the throng of flailing dancers. Walking into a place like Henry Hill enters the Copacabana nightclub in Goodfellas always makes me smile, even though I know I'll be leaving more like Benny Hill at the end of the night. Beers for me and Ladda, and knowing they were on to a good thing. Drinks for the girls taking care of us. Earlier, we had been down at Sam's 2000 for drinks and something to eat. Almost instantly, Ladda became friends with the girl serving us there, who had only just started her life in the neon world. She, as it turned out, was also called Ladda, which then gave them a real bond. She was also one who, many years ago, I would have been sure to rescue. Drinks all around, and somehow we were joined by a gay bloke who also worked there. A few drinks for the 4 of us and we said goodbye and moved along the SOI. If you order food in Country Road Bar, it comes from Sam's 2000. So after several beers with Ladda and the girls taking care of us in Country Road, Ladda from Sam's then appeared with food for a nearby table. Spotting us through a sea of people, she came over and it was tequilas for the 2 Laddas, along with more beers. Once back at Sam's, she had obviously passed the word on to our gay friend, who then soon arrived with another food order for someone else. Acting as if he was surprised to see us, he minced his way over just in time for another drinks order. But it's a happy scene, the music is loud, every table is jumping, the dance floor is full, the lights are swirling, and drinks are sloshed around without a care. Ladda disappeared for a few minutes to go and say hello to a friend who worked in the corner bar opposite. It came as no surprise that she was able to join us for a drink. By now my drinks bill had more pages to it than the Lonely Planet Guide to Thailand. The beer was flowing in what had seemingly become my own private little party, along with the 2 from Sam's, who were making suspiciously frequent appearances. Settling the bill, I tell myself that in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. Once back home in Ohio, on a cold winter's day, I knew I'd be glad that I'd had a good night out to look back on. At least I'd had enough cash on me to cover it that time around. There were occasions when I didn't. No matter how many times I'd say to Ladda, I don't want to have a big bill tonight, okay? Whenever we went down to her bar on Patpong, she would always reply, okay, I take care of you. And no matter how many times I said, we'll just stay for a couple of beers, so she could say hello to friends and show that she'd snagged herself a farang. I knew, she knew, and everybody working there knew. There would be no escape for me. If we arrived there early evening with every intention of moving on later, it was odds on that we'd still be there after the market had packed up and gone home. More often than not, we would still be there long after all the other bars had turned out the lights and closed for the night. Patpong is then left to the rats that scavenge around in the gloom amongst leaking bin bags piled up in the street. Drinks all around, as it had been on those bright, hot, sunny afternoons. Late into the evening, after more than enough to drink already, Mama-san would then make her nightly appearance. A crafty old girl. She knows I know it's all a game, I know she knows I know it's all a game, but we play along anyway. Every time, without fail, just as I was about to make my escape, Ladda would place another beer in front of me and say, "Mama buy you." I am then the only one with a drink. I then feel obliged to buy one back for Mama-san, which is the whole point of the exercise. Then another for the girls, who all joke around banging on the bottom of their empty bottles to get those last drops out. They're all in it together, even Ladda. Another trick to keep me there, knowing that I liked crisps, Lays, or peanuts to munch on with my beer, was for Mama-san to dispatch one of the girls down to the nearest 7-Eleven. She would return with several bags of crisps and other assorted snacks that were then all poured out on a plate for me. By then, I had usually given up on the idea of moving on with Ladda, and she, I knew, was more than happy to stay. Many times I would say to her, "I didn't want a big bill tonight," long after it was already too late. "Okay, I take care," she would say, taking the fistful of bills from my pot and looking at each slip, trying to add it all up. She always gave up halfway through. There were occasions when the time came that I didn't have enough cash to cover it. I know it's insane letting a bill mount up in a place like that. Even while I'm sitting there doing it, I know I shouldn't. I've no doubt it also gets padded out a little. But by the time I've reached that point, I just think, well, I've had a good night out, and in the grand scheme of things, once I get back home, what will it matter? At least I was always trusted to pay what I owed next time around. I know I would be classed as old school. I don't pretend to be Mr. High-Tech, far from it. I don't do internet banking, and I've never booked a flight online. I have never owned a smartphone. The mobile I use in USA is old enough to have friends frequently scoff at it, suggesting that I get something more up to date. The battered little Nokia I use in Thailand is the next model up from 2 tin cans and a piece of string. It makes and receives calls, it sends and receives texts, and that is pretty much it. To my way of thinking, it's just one less thing to worry about while I'm there. Nobody is ever going to steal it. But it does attract attention. When I lived in Bangkok with Boom, she would often ask me not to use it in public as she felt embarrassed by it. "Please," she would mutter, if we were sitting in a restaurant or bar and I received a text, "don't show your phone." I always made sure as many people as possible could see it whenever she said that. People openly laugh at it. Girls in bars have taken it from me and pretended to pose for selfies with it. Others have said it was cute. I recently took it back to MBK from where I bought it years ago to see if I could still get a new battery for it. The young shop assistant was barely able to conceal her amusement as she called someone else over to take a look. As they rummaged in a little cabinet beneath the counter for a battery, I could hear them giggling. As well as having the oldest phone in Thailand, I still, just to add to my old school credentials, use traveller's cheques. This comes as a surprise to most people, as they can't believe such things are still in use. It often comes as a surprise to the people working in the currency exchange places around Bangkok as well, despite having big electronic boards showing the exchange rates for them. Admittedly, they are getting harder to use now. I flew into Cambodia a while ago, only to find that they no longer accepted them. Same in Vietnam. But in Thailand, they are just about clinging on. I feel I must be just about the last person using them. This sometimes can take several attempts. Many of the bank girls who do a stint in those booths outside the main branches don't know how to deal with them anymore. Or, as I suspect, many say they don't because they can't be bothered. A girl working at the Bangkok bank branch in Nana just lost it completely with me one day. She seemed to be there every time I went to cash a cheque. I was a little taken aback when, halfway through proceedings, she suddenly raised her voice and demanded to know how many you have, as she scowled at me through the glass. Before I could answer, she continued, "Every day you come, why you not change all?" she wanted to know. I'd had some stolen before and managed to get them replaced. Still a little surprised to see a girl in her position reacting as she was. I started to explain about them being more secure than carrying a load of cash. She glared at me and continued with her tirade. "Every time Bangkok Bank call me and want to know why you come every day." Knowing how important it is for Thais not to lose face, I kept things calm and polite and let her carry on losing hers. "How many you have?" she continued, her twisted features looking as though she would kill me there and then if she could. She carried on with the rest of the transaction, muttering to herself, jabbing at the computer keyboard and slamming paperwork down on the counter for me to sign. "So is this going to be a problem next time I come?" I asked with polite sarcasm. "No, no problem," she spat, with what bordered on sarcasm of her own. I saw her again a few days later as she went to lunch at a street stall on Soi 8. She nodded and smiled sheepishly when she spotted me. I found a less convenient place to cash my remaining cheques for the remainder of my stay. Between trips to Bangkok, I would keep in touch with Ladda via Google Translate on Facebook Messenger, or with phone calls and FaceTime. She never asked me to send money until, thinking that it's nice to be nice, I sent her some as a surprise for her birthday so she could enjoy herself with friends at the bar. She had never heard of Western Union until then. Once she found out how easy it was, I started to receive more messages with a request for money so she could pay for loom, or pay klep ban, or see a doctor because she was my sabai. While I was working, it was okay. I would send B1000 now and again, but not every time. I had known her for 5 years or so by then. I didn't always believe her, but I knew she struggled with money even at the best of times. As always, it's catch-22 for me whenever a bar girl asks if I can send money. As the pandemic cast its ever-lengthening shadow across the globe, she left it too late to leave Bangkok. Her friends at the bar, who all seemed to have husbands and kids or other family members to stay with, all got out of the city before lockdown and went back to their respective hometowns. Requests for money then became more frequent. I started to dread logging into Facebook Messenger and seeing another message from her waiting for me to open. Talking with her on FaceTime was always a challenge, but there was no doubt, seeing her pretty much trapped in that tiny little room, she was barely keeping her head above water. I had been made redundant for the second time in my life before the pandemic kicked in, so I only had unemployment benefit coming in myself. But I couldn't just cast her adrift. At least I was getting something. She had also missed out on the Thai government scheme to pay people who couldn't work for a while. She wouldn't have known how to apply for it anyway. She was not my responsibility. Yet, as much as I didn't want to be sending money to a bar girl, I felt some obligation to help. Requests for money kept on coming. She would hold up a packet of mama soup to the camera and say that that was all she had. Or messages would say that she hadn't eaten for 2 days. "Please, can you help?" I resigned myself to helping her until the bar reopened, if it ever would. I know a little can go a long way, food-wise, so I would send some when she asked. I tried to convince myself that some good karma would be coming my way as a result. I knew she was struggling, but there was always that nagging feeling of being taken for a mug. I let a few messages go by unanswered. They became more desperate as the days went on. I felt bad about it, but I was hardly making money myself. And then it happened. A long, rambling message in Thai. Even Google Translate seemed to be saying you're on your own with this one. I went through it a few times. Sandwiched in the middle of the message was a photo that I couldn't make out. I didn't bother to open it for a while as I was too busy trying to decipher the message. I then clicked on the photo to fill the screen to see if it would shed more light on things. At first, it didn't register what it was that I was looking at. I could see my signature on something. Slowly, it began to dawn on me. I was looking at a traveler's cheque. It was signed in the top left-hand corner by me, as you are required to do upon receipt. My jaw just about hit the floor. She was showing me one of my own unused £100 cheques. The message began to make a little more sense. How many you have? Every day you come, why you not change all? Every time Bangkok Bank call me and want to know why you come every day. I didn't want to believe it, having known her for that long, but she had obviously stolen the cheque. I could only imagine that at some point, probably while I was in the shower, she had seized the opportunity and taken it from the middle of the stack so that I wouldn't notice. The message was saying how sorry she was for taking the thing and how bad she felt about doing it. Not really understanding what it was, she had obviously soon discovered that it was useless to her. She would never have been able to cash it. The message continued on to say that she wasn't scared to admit to what she had done. But if I was to send her some more money, she would give me back the cheque next time I was in Bangkok. I stared at the screen for a while in disbelief. My first thoughts were, well, there goes another bar-girl relationship. But I sat for a while longer, and strangely, although I was pissed off, I couldn't help but smile. Just when you think you've seen it all. When it comes to the world that these girls live in, there is always something new. This, I was sure, had to be unique. Trying to read further between the lines, once I had taken it all in, I think she had probably taken the cheque not long after I had first invited her over to Soy 8 all those years ago. I wrote messages ready to send, telling her what I thought and that I wouldn't be contacting her ever again. But it just wasn't in me to send them. I could see she was only just about hanging on by a thread. On FaceTime, I tried to look and sound angry, but I think even with such a bad signal, she could see and sense that my heart wasn't really in it. She looked awful. With strands of hair plastered to her sweaty-looking face, it looked as though she'd been sleeping in that room for days. Chanmai mi Satan, I don't have any money. Although it was hard to imagine things being the same between us, if ever we were to meet again, I just couldn't cut an already fraying lifeline and leave her to it. I concluded that what she had done in owning up to stealing from me was out of desperation. She's not my responsibility, I would tell myself. But I sent her some money anyway, for food. Catch-22 gets me once again. I have subsequently lost contact with Ladda and have never seen or heard from her since. What did you make of Andre's story? Share your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. If you found Andre's story interesting, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you enjoy hearing these insights into Thailand, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.